The toaster on my kitchen counter that I've had for 11 years. It's the kind with the wide slots, brushed chrome finish, two settings, light and dark, nothing in between. The chrome has a long scratch down the left side from when I dropped it moving into my first apartment. I've thought about replacing it maybe 100 times. I never do. My mother gave it to me when I turned 24. Not as a birthday gift exactly. More like she was cleaning out the garage, found a box of things she didn't want anymore, and handed it to me on my way out the door after Sunday dinner. "You could use this," she said. She didn't even wrap it. Just handed me the box and turned back to the kitchen. My sister got a car that year, a 2014 Honda Accord, pearl white, 4-door, 42,000 miles. My parents co-signed the loan, paid the down payment, and covered the first 8 months of payments while my sister got on her feet. That's the phrase my mother used, getting on her feet. As if my sister were recovering from something. As if 26 years of living at home, bouncing between part-time jobs, and asking my parents for grocery money every third week was some kind of temporary condition that just needed a little support to fix itself. I didn't say anything about the car. I carried the toaster to my car, drove back to my apartment, and made myself a piece of toast when I got home. I stood at the counter eating it, and I thought, this is fine. You're fine. You don't need a car. You have a car. You bought your own car, you pay your own insurance, you have your own apartment, you have your own job. You're fine. I said that to myself a lot back then. You're fine. I'm 31 now, and I'm going to tell you what happened at my parents' 30th anniversary dinner, and why I haven't spoken to my father in 8 months, and why, if I'm being completely honest, I think I'm better off. My name doesn't matter. Call me what you want. What matters is that I'm the older daughter. The one who left home at 18, put herself through college on a combination of academic scholarships and weekend waitressing shifts, graduated with a degree in accounting, passed the CPA exam on the first try, and spent the next 7 years building a career in financial compliance at a mid-sized firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. My sister, I'll call her Brianna because that's her name and I'm past the point of protecting her feelings, is 3 years younger than me and has never, to my knowledge, held a job for longer than 14 months. Not because she can't. She's smart. She's genuinely frustratingly smart, in the way that certain people are smart when they've never had to actually use it. She can read a room in under 30 seconds. She knows exactly what to say to make my mother laugh. She has a gift for making people feel sorry for her without ever quite saying anything that could be held against her. She's also been financially dependent on my parents for her entire adult life, and for the last 4 years, on me. Not by my choice. Let me be clear about that. It started small, the way these things always do, $100 here, $200 there. She needed to make rent 1 month because her hours got cut. She needed new tires. She needed to cover a utility bill while she waited for a paycheck. I said yes every time because she was my sister and I had it and she needed it. And that seemed, at the time, like a simple enough equation. It was never simple. By the time I turned 30, I had given Brianna somewhere between $9,000 and $12,000 over the course of 4 years. I don't have the exact number because I was stupid and sentimental and I never wrote it down. I have the bank records now. I went back and calculated it after everything happened. The total was $11,240. She paid back $300 of it. My parents have been married 30 years. My mother taught elementary school for 22 of those years and retired at 60. My father spent most of his career in middle management at a logistics company and retired 2 years ago with a pension and, I learned much later, a $340,000 investment portfolio that he'd been quietly building since the early 2000s. I didn't know about the portfolio for a long time. That's relevant. The anniversary dinner was my idea. I want to be honest about that too. I suggested it, I organized it, I made the reservation at the restaurant, a private room at a steakhouse in Raleigh, where I knew they'd been wanting to go for their anniversary for years. I sent the invitations to the extended family. I coordinated with my aunt and my mother's 2 closest friends. I paid the deposit to hold the room. I drove up from Charlotte the morning of the dinner, 3.5 hours. I got there early to make sure everything was set up right. The flowers I'd ordered were on the tables. The photo slideshow I'd made was loaded on the display screen. I'd spent 2 weeks putting that slideshow together. 30 years of photographs, starting with their wedding, moving through early parenthood, all the Christmases and graduations and Sunday dinners, ending with a recent photo of the 4 of us at my mother's retirement party. I was proud of it. I want you to know that. I was genuinely, uncomplicated proud of it when I walked into that room and saw it playing. My sister showed up 40 minutes late in a new dress, having contributed nothing. She kissed my mother on the cheek and said, "You look amazing." And my mother beamed like she'd been handed a gift. Dinner was good, genuinely good, for most of it. My parents were happy. My mother cried at the slideshow, the good kind of crying. My aunt made a toast that went on a little too long but was heartfelt. My father ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than my car payment and poured glasses for the whole table without asking. I was sitting next to my father's brother, across the table from Brianna, when my father stood up. I assumed he was making a toast. I picked up my glass. He was not making a toast. "Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking," he said, "about what we want our legacy to look like, about what it means to take care of your family." I watched my mother's face. She was smiling in a way that looked prepared. "We've made a decision," my father said, "that we're really proud of, and we wanted to share it tonight with everyone we love." Brianna was already smiling. She knew. I don't know when they told her, but she already knew, and I watched her smile and felt something shift in my chest that I couldn't name yet. "We're signing over the Lake Norman property to Brianna." The Lake Norman property to Brianna? My parents bought a small house on the lake in 2009, when prices dropped after the recession. They'd been renting it out for years, quietly. I had been there maybe a dozen times in my life. It was 3 bedrooms, a screened porch, a dock. Modest by lake house standards, not modest by any other standard. I had looked up the property value approximately never, because it had never occurred to me that it was something I needed to think about. I looked it up under the table while my father was still talking. Current estimated value, $390,000. My father was still talking. Something about how Brianna had been going through a hard time and needed stability, and they believed in her and wanted to give her a real foundation to build from. My mother was nodding. Brianna had her hand over her mouth like she was overwhelmed. I put my phone face down on the table and picked up my fork and took a bite of my steak and chewed it and swallowed it and did not say anything. Then my father looked at me. "Sweetheart," he said, "we know you've always been the independent one. You've never needed us the way Brianna does. You've always landed on your feet. Always landed on your feet. There it was. We want you to know," he said, "that your mother and I are so proud of everything you've built. You've never needed a safety net. That's something to be proud of." He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and put a card on the table and slid it across to me. A greeting card. White envelope. My name written on the front in my mother's handwriting. I opened it. Inside the card, a Visa gift card, $250, and, in my mother's handwriting, "For a nice dinner out. We love you so much." I sat there holding that gift card for what felt like a full minute but was probably about 4 seconds. $250 for the daughter who planned this dinner, made the slideshow, drove 7 hours round trip, and paid the deposit on this room. My father was looking at me with an expression I recognized from my entire childhood. The expression that meant, "You understand, don't you? You always understand. You're the easy one." I put the gift card in my purse. I picked up my fork. I cut another piece of steak. And while everyone turned back to their conversations and my sister started crying happy tears and my mother moved around the table to hug her, I opened my phone again. I didn't call a bank. I want to be accurate here. What I did was quieter than that, and it took longer, and it was more deliberate than anything I'd done in my life. I opened my email and sent one message. It went to my personal attorney. It said, "Let's move forward with what we discussed. I'm ready. I need to back up about 6 months. Last spring, my mother called me on a Wednesday evening, upset, asking if I could help Brianna with a small situation. The situation turned out to be that Brianna had not filed federal income taxes in 3 years. Not because she owed a significant amount, her income had been minimal, but because she'd ignored the notices, lost the paperwork, convinced herself it would somehow resolve itself, and was now receiving certified letters from the IRS that she was also ignoring. My mother asked me to help her navigate it. "You know taxes," she said. "You could just look at it. I'm a CPA. I specialize in financial compliance. I have helped clients navigate IRS correspondence that would make most people want to move to another country. I know exactly what 3 years of unfiled returns looks like and how to fix it." I said I would look at it. What I found, when Brianna finally sent me everything, was manageable. Nothing criminal, no fraud, just neglect. A few $100s owed plus penalties. I told her what she needed to do, gave her the forms, walked her through it step by step, told her to call me if she had questions. She did not file. She called me 2 months later, asking if I could just do it for her because it was too confusing. I said I would help her do it, not do it for her. She said she didn't have time. I said I'd block off a Saturday. She said she'd think about it. She didn't file. Third call, 4 months after the first. My mother again. This time her voice different, tighter. The IRS had filed a substitute return on Brianna's behalf. There were liens. There was a levy notice on a bank account. There were penalties and interest on top of the original amount. And now we were looking at something closer to $4,000 total. I sat with that phone against my ear for a long moment. How much would it cost to fix it now? My mother asked. I'll let you know, I said. I spent the next 3 days doing something I hadn't done before. I sat down with every financial record I could access. My own records, things my parents had mentioned over the years, things I'd seen and half noticed and filed away without thinking about. And I started actually looking. That's when I found out about the $340,000 portfolio. I found out because my father had mentioned his investment guy at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, mentioned the name of the firm, and I had filed it away in the back of my mind the way you file away things you think you won't need. I pulled it up. I looked at what was publicly available. I thought about the lake house, and the portfolio, and the retirement pension, and the fact that my parents had, for years, let me believe they were comfortable but not wealthy. I thought about $11,000. I didn't say anything to anyone. I made an appointment with my attorney instead. Her name is Dana. I've been her client for 4 years. I told her I was thinking about protecting some assets and restructuring some personal finances, and I might have a complicated family situation developing, and I wanted to understand my options. She asked me to explain the situation. I explained it, all of it. The money I'd lent Brianna, the IRS situation, the lake house I'd just learned about. Dana is not a dramatic person. She listened to all of it without interrupting. When I was done, she said, "Okay, here's what I want you to think about." What she wanted me to think about was whether I was currently listed as a cosigner or guarantor on any accounts my family held. I was not. Whether I had any jointly held assets with any family member. I did not. Whether I had any outstanding informal agreements or verbal commitments that could be construed as financial obligation. The gift card, I said. Every single year. She smiled slightly. That's not a legal obligation. No, I said. It's a different kind. Then Dana told me something I hadn't considered. If your parents transfer that lake property to your sister as a gift, she said, and your sister has active IRS liens, the transfer could be subject to serious scrutiny. The IRS has strong reachback provisions on asset transfers made to avoid collection. I thought about that. Also, Dana said, a property with IRS complications transferred to a new owner doesn't transfer clean. The new owner inherits the exposure. My parents don't know about the liens, I said. Does your sister know they don't know? Silence. Do you want to tell them? Dana asked. Not yet, I said. What do you want to tell? I looked at my hands. I thought about the toaster. I thought about the car. I thought about 11 years of being the easy one, the independent one, the one who landed on her feet, the one who never needed a safety net even when I was working doubles on weekends to pay tuition, even when I ate rice and beans for 2 weeks because I miscalculated my budget, even when I was scared and exhausted and alone in a city where I didn't know anyone and I did not call home because I had already learned by then that calling home meant being reminded of everything I was supposed to be. I want to understand all my options, I said, and I want to wait for the right moment. The right moment was my parents' anniversary dinner. The morning after the dinner, I called Dana from my hotel room in Raleigh. It happened, I said. They announced the transfer last night. Did they go through an attorney? I don't know yet. My father said they'd been working on it. Okay, Dana said. Here's what happens next. Here's what happens next, and I'm going to explain this carefully because several people in my life have asked me to walk them through it, and I think it matters that it's clear. When my parents transferred the lake property to Brianna, they were transferring it to someone with active federal tax liens. Under IRS regulations, a transfer of property to a person with federal liens can be challenged, and the IRS can pursue the property even after transfer in certain circumstances. Brianna had never resolved her tax situation. I had stopped helping with it after the second call, and the liens were still active, now with additional penalties. My parents, as the people who executed the transfer, were potentially exposed to gift tax questions as well. They had not used an attorney who specialized in property transfers. They had used a friend of a friend who had done real estate paperwork before. The quitclaim deed was filed, but the due diligence around the IRS situation was non-existent. Dana had told me all of this. She had also told me that if I wanted to, I could do nothing. The IRS would likely find the situation on their own eventually. Brianna would face the consequences of the liens without my involvement. I could have done that. I want to be honest that I considered it. What I actually did was different. I sent my parents a letter, a real one, typed and printed, sent certified mail to make sure they received it and signed for it. In the letter, I explained that I had become aware of active IRS liens on Brianna's tax record, that these liens predated the property transfer, and that they may want to consult a qualified attorney about the implications of the transfer as executed. I attached documentation. Public IRS lien records are searchable. I had pulled Brianna's. I included the relevant pages. I also, in the same letter, formally requested repayment of the $11,240 I had lent Brianna over 4 years, itemized, dated, with a 30-day response window. I did not threaten anything. I did not accuse anyone of anything. I stated facts. I made a request. I gave them 30 days. Then I drove back to Charlotte. My father called me 4 times in the next 2 weeks. The first call, he was calm, asking if I was sure about the lien information. I said yes. The second call, he was frustrated, saying this felt like an attack on the family. I said I disagreed. The third call, my mother was on the line too, and she was crying, and she said she didn't understand why I was doing this, and I said I was protecting myself and providing them with information they needed to make good decisions. The fourth call, my father was angry in a way I hadn't heard since I was a teenager, and he said some things that I'm not going to repeat here. And I said, very calmly, that I thought we should take some time before we talked again, and I ended the call. Brianna texted me 3 times. The first 2 were variations of, "How could you do this to me?" The third was a long message, well written, that I think she probably spent several hours composing, about how I had always resented her success and was only doing this out of jealousy. I read it twice. I thought about what it would have felt like reading that message 5 years ago. I put my phone down and went for a run. What happened after that happened over several months, and I know the details only partially. From my aunt who stayed in contact with me and told me things she thought I should know. Brianna had to resolve the IRS situation before the property transfer could be considered clean. This required engaging a tax resolution specialist, not me, paying back taxes, penalties, and interest, and setting up a payment plan. The total, by the time everything was calculated, was close to $7,000. She did not have $7,000. My parents paid it, out of the investment portfolio. The property transfer was reviewed by an actual real estate attorney who identified additional issues with the original paperwork, not insurmountable but requiring correction, additional fees, additional time. My parents have not taken their anniversary trip to the Napa Valley wine country that my mother has been talking about for 6 years. They'd been planning it for the fall. I don't know if they still are. Brianna is living at the lake house. My aunt says she seems happy. I'm not going to tell you I feel great about all of this. I'm not going to perform satisfaction I don't entirely feel. What I feel is clearer than I felt in a long time. I feel like I spent years making myself smaller to fit into a role my family needed me to play, and then I stopped, and it was painful, and the aftermath was ugly, and I miss my mother in a way that I carry around like something physical, a weight in my sternum. Especially on Sunday mornings when I used to call her. I also feel like I made an honest accounting of what I was owed and what I was willing to give, and I stopped giving what I wasn't willing to give. And I told the truth about things that needed to be said, and I did it without cruelty. I have a boyfriend now. His name is Marcus. He's a structural engineer and he makes really good coffee, and he does not have a complicated relationship with money or with sisters. On our 3rd date, I told him, somewhat abruptly, that I had a difficult family situation and I was still working through it. He said, "Okay, do you want to talk about it, or do you want to eat your pasta?" I said, "Pasta." He said, "Good choice." I told him the whole story on our 7th date. He listened to all of it. When I got to the part about the gift card, he put his fork down. $250, he said. $250. He was quiet for a moment. After I organized the whole dinner. He picked up his fork again. I hope the steak was good at least. It was, I told him. The steak was genuinely excellent. I talked to a therapist for the first time in January, 8 months after the anniversary dinner. Her name is Carol, and she has a succulent on her windowsill that looks like it's been there for 20 years. In our 3rd session, she asked me what I wished I had done differently. I thought about it for a long time. I wish I had done it sooner, I said. Not the letter, not any of the financial stuff. I wish I had stopped pretending I was fine sooner. I wish I had said out loud, years ago, that I was keeping score and it wasn't adding up, instead of just keeping being fine about it until I wasn't. Carol wrote something down. And the letter? She said. The certified mail? I'd do that exactly the same. She smiled at her notebook. I go back to Charlotte after our sessions and I go home to the apartment I share with Marcus now, and I make coffee in the mornings and sometimes I make toast, and I look at that toaster on the counter, the one with the scratch down the side, and I think about what it means that I've kept it this long. I don't think it means I'm hung up on it. I think it means I remember. I think there's a difference between holding on to something out of bitterness and holding on to something because it tells the truth about where you came from and what you survived. My mother gave me a scratched-up toaster in a box without wrapping it. My sister got a car. My sister now has a lake house. I have a CPA license, a clear conscience, a certified mail receipt, and a therapist who charges $160 an hour and is worth every cent. I think I came out ahead. I've thought a lot about what actually caused all of this. Not the dinner, not the gift card, not the lake house, not even the certified letter. Those were just the moments when things became visible. What caused it was something older and quieter, the long pattern of a family deciding, year after year, that one daughter's stability was a resource to be used, and another daughter's instability was a problem to be funded. That pattern had consequences. It just took a long time for anyone to feel them. Brianna didn't end up with tax liens because she was unlucky. She ended up with tax liens because for years, every time she didn't do something she was supposed to do, someone else absorbed the cost of that. My parents paid her rent. I covered her shortfalls. She learned, very efficiently, that consequences were optional. That's not a character flaw she was born with. That's something she was taught, slowly, by people who loved her and thought they were helping. My parents didn't give away a $390,000 property out of malice. I want to be honest about that even now. They genuinely believed they were doing the right thing. They looked at 2 daughters, one who had a career and an apartment and a savings account, and one who had none of those things, and they made the calculation that the one who was struggling needed more. That logic isn't evil, but it doesn't account for why one daughter had built those things and the other hadn't. It doesn't ask what role 30 years of unequal support played in creating that gap. It just looks at the gap and tries to close it with a property transfer, without asking what happens next. What happens next is what I tried to show them, not to punish them. To make the invisible visible. I spent a long time being angry about the unfairness of it. The toaster, the car, the $11,000, the gift card. And that anger was real and it was valid, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. But I don't think anger was what finally moved me. What moved me was something closer to clarity. The moment I sat at that anniversary dinner, holding a Visa gift card while my sister accepted a lake house, I stopped being confused about what was happening. I had been confused for years, telling myself I was misreading things, that I was too sensitive, that families are complicated and I should be grateful for what I had. At that table, the confusion lifted. I saw it plainly. And once you see something plainly, you can't keep pretending you don't. The intelligence wasn't in the certified letter. The intelligence was in the years before it. The records I kept. The attorney I had the foresight to consult. The decision to understand my options before I needed them. I wasn't lucky. I was prepared. There's a difference, and I think it matters. Dana told me once that the most effective thing a person can do in a complicated situation is stay calm and stay accurate. Don't catastrophize. Don't retaliate from emotion. Just document what is true. Understand what your options are, and act from a place of clarity rather than pain. I tried to do that. I didn't always succeed. There were nights I cried in my car in the parking garage at work, nights I drafted messages to my mother that I deleted without sending, but when it counted, I stayed accurate. Marcus asked me once if I regretted any of it. I told him the truth. I regret that it had to happen at all. I don't regret a single thing I actually did. Carol, my therapist, would probably say that's growth. I think it's just honesty. And I've learned that honesty, the plain, documented, certified male kind, is the only thing that ever actually changes anything.